Welcome into another edition of Mavs Latest. I'm Josyah Howard, and before we get anything started, please subscribe down below. Please leave any comments for me as I'm talking about things today. Like, rate, subscribe. It's all day, every day. Dallas Mavericks with me, Josyah Howard, here on Mavs Latest. But let's start here. Dallas Mavericks center Dereck Lively the second. He hosted a special edition Mavs Academy hoop camp on Sunday in Dallas. Over 100 young basketball players attended to learn from Mavs Academy coaches and Dereck Lively. After the event, he took some time to speak with reporters, and at the event, he discussed the event. He also talked about the Mavericks landing Cooper Flag, and when asked about the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, he said it was an insane moment, grateful for it. We welcome in Coop with open arms. I had called him earlier today, and he always having a smile on his face, always cracking a joke. So I'm making sure that he feels as comfortable as possible, giving him any little detail, any little thing to get him by. Because whenever I was in his position, I remember how frightened I was when I was a 19-year-old in the NBA, and he's 18 right now. Obviously, they both attended Duke, so they have a little connection there. So it's nice to see that he really is starting to build a connection with Cooper Flag, and it seems like he actually had a relationship with him before they were teammates in Dallas. And he said, I've probably known him for a couple years now, at least 2 or 3 years, and he's just been the same smiling, cracking jokes kid as always that I've always known. I'm glad that he's been able to still be that same person, not having to give too much of the spotlight uh just rain on him. So no matter if he's in the gym, no matter if he's coming by the house, he's always just has a smile on his face. He's always just being Coop. So cool to see that they already have a little relationship going. And again, another person just has nothing but great words to say about Cooper Flag. And you know, when it comes to being a number one pick and the expectations and all that, you could easily skate by without passing the test of, people like you generally, right? You could still be the first pick and no one likes you if you're that guy, if you're that good. Um so in terms of talent, I think Cooper is that good, but he's also that good of a person. So it makes it easier to make that pick, easier to bring him into your locker room, and easier for veterans. I mean, Dereck Lively's not technically a veteran in the league yet, but in terms of just everyone around the team and the franchise that just have nothing but great things to say about him. And I just hope that positivity leans into the season, and I just hope, if he doesn't start as hot as everybody wants him to, I just hope it doesn't flip 180 for him, because that would be unfair. I don't think that's fair for, if he doesn't start as hot as you would like him to, then to automatically flip 180 on him. It's not cool. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to in my mind, not fair to me, but not fair in my mind that if he has a rough couple weeks, couple months trying to figure things out, you can't be too hard on him, is all I'm saying. And again, nice to see Dereck Lively not only, be involved in the community and helping out young ballers in Texas, but also giving a shout out to his new teammate in Cooper Flag, and, you know, giving a little insight to not only what it could be on the court together, but a little insight into the relationship they used to have. But next one I want to get to today here on Mavs Latest, Dan Faval on Bleacher Report. He presented somebody on the Mavericks that he would say is the most underrated piece on the Mavericks, and that player is Naji Marshall. And he continues on by saying, it would definitely be neat if Marshall both made and attempted more triples. But he's highly a useful player without the glitzy volume and efficiency, like Marshall. All right, he continues by saying the scope of his defensive assignments regularly runs the gamut of guards, wings, and bigs. He's more likely to get moved around so that he winds up covering a star than avoid tracking one. Um, Across 60 healthy bouts, 31 starts, um, you know, he has averaged 13 points on 50, 27, 81 splits, uh, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal a night. So he's had a nice floor. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a versatile defender. Don't get me wrong. But the role that the Mavericks particularly need him to play is shoot when you're open, hit that spot up shot when you're open, and play some great defense. And unfortunately, I think the one thing Marshall does need to still work on is that three, as Favale writes. He lacks in dependable outside range. He makes up with for his driving acumen. He is 32% from three in his career. No, excuse me, 30.2% from three in his career. But he does continue by saying he can bully his way to the rim, and that's not his default. He dusted off the nifty floor game during his first season with the Mavericks, displaying patience coming off screens, hesitation handles, and few footwork counters, all without sacrificing efficiency. Now, I will say that he is one of the Mavericks' underrated players, but the role he's playing for the Mavericks, it might not be best suited for him offensively. And I think he might be able to be unlocked offensively somewhere else. But I do think he helps the Mavericks is defensively and how he can switch on multiple positions. And he's a high motor, he's efficient, he's not going to take bad shots. So Naji's somebody that I like on the roster. I think will help the team. But in terms of him personally, if he wanted to take the next step and if he wanted to not be like the eighth man, but possibly get a look to be a starter on a worse team, I think he could do that for himself if he wanted that for himself. But, some people are content, playing a role and winning. So we'll see what happens there. But, I do think Naji's one of the more underrated players on the Mavericks, but I wouldn't say the most underrated. I'd almost say PJ Washington is starting to slide under to the underrated realm in terms of his versatility, and he's a little bit better of an offensive player than Naji is. So in terms of underrated, I'd probably lean PJ Washington in terms of underrated. But a nice note on Naji, and you know if he does get that 30% 3 point number up, and I think he is kind of tracking on working on that number. If he can get to the mid 30s, I think it'll be a little bit more useful, a little bit more helpful. But again, I'd say PJ Washington is a little bit more of an underrated player when it comes to the Mavericks roster right now. But want to move on to Kendrick Perkins. He thinks people are sleeping on the Mavericks. People are sleeping on Anthony Davis in particular. He says they arguably have the best front line in basketball with Daniel Gafford, Dereck Lively, and Anthony Davis. And you throw in a sprinkle of PJ Washington and Cooper Flagg. Marshall was pretty damn good for them last year. He's back. In the pickup of D'Angelo Russell to hold it down until Kyrie gets back, with the leadership and the head coach of Jason Kidd. They're going to be a force defensively. I think we forget at times how special and how dominant Anthony Davis could look when he's healthy and available. Obviously, the biggest issue for them would be Anthony Davis's availability, plus Kyrie already not being available. According to FanDuel, the over-under win total for the Mavericks is at 40.5. So if you think the Mavericks are going to make the playoffs, definitely take that over. But I would say if Kyrie gets back in time, they're gonna hit over 41. They're gonna get 41 wins or more. I wouldn't 40 seems pretty low for the amount of talent on the team. I know it's the Western Conference. I know it's deeper than the Eastern Conference, but 40 and a half seems low for how much talent is on this team. And I do think Perk is right. I think people are sleeping on if AD is actually on the floor, how dominant he could be, not only defensively, in terms of he is the anchor of a defense and can turn and spearhead a defense into dominance just from him leading the way. But then he has nights where he's 30 plus points and 15 plus rebounds, and you're not stopping him. So I think people forget about that side of Anthony Davis. And when you add a Cooper Flag and when you add a PJ Washington, you add all these pieces, and when you get Kyrie back too, he's not going to be asked to do as much scoring. He's not going to asked to do the 30 points per game. He's not going to be asked to do that stuff. He's going to be able to rely on some teammates to make up some of that scoring, obviously in a Cooper Flag, a PJ Washington, etc. So, especially when Kyrie Irving comes back. So, I agree with Perk. I think people are sleeping on the Mavericks. 40 seems low in terms of win total. I think people are sleeping on the Mavericks. I think, especially if they get healthy a little quicker than you expect, they're going to be definitely a play-in team. And if they can compete for that sixth spot, if they're healthy enough, I don't think they'll be competing for that sixth spot by the end of the year. I think they will be competing for between that 7 and 10, the play-in range. But once if you're in it, you get that 8th seed, you're on and rolling from there. So people are sleeping on the Mavericks, I think, and especially the value that particularly Anthony Davis brings. And that comes with what the Mavs chatter is today is Marissa Myers of TWSN. She believes the Mavericks will trade away Anthony Davis to the Warriors. She writes, the Warriors need to be looking to do whatever they can to advance the team this upcoming season and go all in on one last championship for Steph Curry as he nears the end of his career. A way for the Warriors to do that is by doing a blockbuster trade and grabbing Anthony Davis from the Mavericks. Now, there's not a particular trade offer here, but I will say this, and just in the general scope of knowing who's on Golden State's roster. There's no one on Golden State's roster that I really want paired for Anthony Davis, unless you have a bunch of picks attached. There's no one I can really think of on their roster. They're on the older side, or their younger players are not really well developed because, to be honest, Steve Kerr, he's an all-time great coach, but he can't develop talent for nothing. He's one of the worst development coaches in the history of the game. That's why Jonathan Kuminga is about to be in Sacramento or wherever he's going to go. So, when it comes to trading Anthony Davis to the Golden State Warriors, one, it's just a fun trade idea. That's not happening. I promise, not happening. That's not going to happen. I think if AD were to be traded, it would be AD asking to be traded. I think with the how notorious this Luka trade is, I think if you're Nico Harrison, you have to be committed and loyal to Anthony Davis as long as humanly possible. But you also have to walk that line of, if he's injured or if you see a decline, you have to get as much value as you can. And I get that's where this type of article and this type of conversation comes in of when do you pull that plug of, all right, Anthony Davis is on the downturn and he's already injury prone. Let's get as much value as possible. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it's this season though. So that's why I would probably shut all that down. If someone's calling for Anthony Davis, there better be a ton of picks attached, or I'm hanging up the phone immediately. But this has been Mavs Latest. I'm Josyah Howard. Again, please subscribe down below. Leave all your comments down below. Like, rate, subscribe. And let's get it, y'all.